Hello there, I'm the student, and in this video I'm going to blow your mind. I released a video a while ago where I said please stop clicking that button, and I meant the button to add everything to a trading company. And also Slavic just recently released a short video in which he said,
Slavic, why you just don't add all of the provinces to a trade company? Wouldn't that be more efficient? I am telling you that this is the least efficient thing that you might do.
So why do I have to do this video now if it is so clear about trading companies? And the answer is, it is not clear at all. And to be clear here, all of what you just heard about trading companies is true, but only if you need a lot, and I really mean a lot of money. But obviously money in single player and also in multiplayer is often not the biggest problem.
I do need the manpower here, man. I do need it.
And this is why I show you today how to use trading companies for manpower, sailors, force limit and money, and all of that with literally zero governing capacity. So to show that off, I've just created a little game over here with a Livonian order and Teutonic order actually that I've switched to. Again, non-Iron Man, just to show you how it works actually. And before I go into the detailed things about trading companies, I just wanted to show the trading company investments to you, because those are the investments that I'm going to talk about later. All of those trading company types, as you can see, company, garrison, harbor and so on, they all have 3 buildings. And those are 2 buildings for improving the provinces, and it is the way that the first one offers exactly half of the benefits that the second one does. As you can see, the first one over here gives trading company provinces local trade power +2, and the second over here gives trading company provinces local trade power +4. So double the amount, and the same goes for the production efficiency, 50% over here and 25% over here. And that's the same with all of those first 2 buildings in every single investment category. And then there is obviously a third building, which is a special building if you want. So a special investment that you can only do in one single state, one time per trading company region, which is basically trade nodes, right? So as I already have one building over here, the governor's mansion in this trading company provinces, I cannot build the township, for example, for trade value, because you can only build one of those 5 special buildings per trade company regions or trade regions for that matter. And for the cost, as you can see, those special buildings cost 1,000 ducats, while those buildings to improve the provinces cost 200 and 400 ducats. Of course, also the price is doubled when the effect is doubled. Any province can be added to a trading company via that little button over here, which is, by the way, at the same position where the HRE button is. So if your provinces are inside the HRE or can be added to the HRE, that HRE thing actually overlays that, so that you cannot use the interaction button. You can, of course, still use this button over here that I've talked about in the video that I mentioned previous. You can obviously add all of those provinces via the interface on the trade thing, but you can also do it per province. And adding a province to a trading company gives that province some effects. And those effects are, first of all, the province gets 100%, so double the local trade power modifier, so extremely valuable for trade. Every province that you add to a trading company gives you also 0.5 naval force limit, which obviously is also quite nice, minus 20% local missionary strength, so you basically can't convert that province, plus 10% institution spread, which is not really valuable because after all it's a territory, so it spreads slower anyways. And it also gives you 25% province governing capacity cost. Also, every province in a trade company is counted as a territory when it comes to the local minimum autonomy, but it is also, of course, affected by minimum autonomy modifiers for territories. And the autonomy modifier is halved for production income, which means if you have 90% autonomy, then you get only minus 45% modifier on your production income instead of minus 90%, which you get on tax and manpower. And of course, the most important modifier that a trading company does for the province is that it ignores the penalties for intolerance of religion and unaccepted cultures, which means that those really nasty modifiers of local unrest, tax, goods produced, or for the unaccepted cultures also tax and manpower are not existing in your trading company province, and you have to keep in mind that you might be able to convert everything that you have, but you are never going to be able to accept every culture in your country, except for like you're playing extremely tall, right? And also it doesn't affect religious unity, so theoretically you don't really have to convert it, except if you go for one faith or for a pretty nice map. Now let's go on to compare the trading companies provinces to Staten provinces. And in the last video of this series of comparing states, half-states, trading companies and territories, I've already said that basically half-states are simply better than full states, but obviously if you compare it one-to-one, full states are better because of the autonomy, and that is why I'm going to compare the trading company effects now to full states. Now, first of all, provinces in trade companies use up 25% more governing capacity cost. That's what I said, but they use 25% more governing capacity cost from territories, which means that in total, as you can see, York is 4 over there, and it has 8 development, so it takes actually 50% governing capacity of your development from base. Where obviously full states with the same development as this province over here give you the full 100% modifier. So 100% of your development in full states is also calculated as governing capacity. So the base effect is half on trading companies, same as with half states, if you remember my last video. Trade company provinces deal way better with cultures and religions, and therefore you have less rebels and more income from the culture and the religion, of course. Of course, the alternative would be to just convert, which obviously takes time and money also, and to accept religions, which obviously you can't really do that much because you have a limit of maximum promoted culture. So if you go wide, then this will run out extremely fast. Doing full states, of course, costs you an additional 100% more admin points for coring those provinces fully, whereas it doesn't cost you any more admin points except for the normal coring if you add those provinces to a trading company. The downside of trading companies is that they don't have edicts such as full states have, so all of those modifiers are not really available. But of course, on the other hand, if you enact an edict, then you can see that the state income rises extremely fast, and therefore you get, of course, again less money. And I've already talked about that in the beginning. There is one more thing that lets you get more out of those trading company provinces, and this is trading company investments. And those trade company investments actually are pretty strong. I have right now enacted all of those which are in my opinion necessary, but of course this one over here that I did with the local tax modifier and local development cost is not really that needed for the value of the province, because tax is like not really a lot of income, and development cost is not really necessary if you play white or something. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that 15% dev cost is like really strong. But for the calculation, I'm just going to calculate with this investment on the harbor side, 400 ducats. This investment on the broker's exchange for 400 ducats. And this investment over here, military administration, on the highest tier for 400 ducats as well. Those are the three most important investments in my opinion, which makes trading company provinces really valuable at all basically. And all of those together cost of course 1,200 ducats per state. And as you can see in this state, for example, there are 4 provinces, and if you go around, you notice that actually most states have 4 provinces. For example, this one over here in London, and this one over here in Wales, and this one over here in Northern England. Of course, there are still a few ones that have 3 provinces only, such as West Midlands, East Midlands, and this one over here as well. But you have to keep in mind that there are also states that have 5 provinces, such as the Wessex state over here. So in this situation, I'm just going to calculate with 4 provinces per state on average. And that means that those 1,200 ducats per state for the trading company investments become around 300 ducats per province. Now there is of course a big building that you can, a big investment that you can do for 1,000 ducats, but this you can do this once per trade company region. So yeah, it is a little bit difficult, like there are smaller and bigger charters on that front. But let's say you have on average 20 provinces in every trade company region that you own, then this would be another 50 ducats per province. And therefore around 350 ducats per province that you have to invest to make those provinces really valuable. Which you obviously don't have on full states, because you don't have to pay any money. Of course, I already said you have to pay admin points more than you had on trading companies, and you have to pay, of course, more governing capacity. After we got the investment and costs of those things, now that brings me to the profits of states versus trading companies. And if you trust me what the calculations matter, then you can just skip to the end where I'm going to tell you the result of that calculation, because this is like a little bit hard to keep on with, because this will be like a lot of in-depth calculations. So if you trust me with that, or if you don't enjoy calculating that and seeing the numbers, then you should just skip in the timestamps that I always have in my videos to the results. You can see that I'm right now in the Livonian order, because the Livonian order has trading companies in this state of Yorkshire. But you've already noticed that the Teutonic order over here owns the state of Northern England. And actually this is a full state. As you can see, a full state with full governing capacity cost. And it has the exact same development, I can assure you that. You can obviously right now calculate that. Exact same development. Also, I've kept an eye on the price of the good, so that the production income is also exactly the same in terms of the price of the trade good. and together with the base production, of course. And this means that I can now directly compare a state with full cores and basically 0% autonomy to a trading company state with a full perfect investment setup. And you can see that the state income of the Teutonic Order is 0.83, whereas the state income of the trading company state is 1.07. That is already almost 1/3, so 33% more income of the state base from, of course, tax and production, whereas obviously most of the income in trading company region comes from the production income, and most of the income in states comes from tax. As you can see, it's pretty even, but a lot from tax, of course. Now, if you have a look on the trade value, then you can just compare the trade value or the trade local trade power that I have in the trading region, and you can see that the current trade power of the Livonian Order in the trade node is, because of all of those 4 provinces only, is already 58. Of course, in this case, the Livonian Order has a trade center, so I have to calculate that off of that, which is like 5 base and 100% more because of the trade company modifier, so -10. I have to calculate -10, and this means actually that I have around 48 base trade power from my provinces, whereas the Teutonic Order with the full states has only, there it is, has only 8 from provinces. And that means that I have almost 6 times more trade power than the Teutonic Order with exactly the same provinces, just because of me having that in a trading company. And that is, of course, mostly because of that investment over here, which gives 4 local base trade power to every province that has that is part of a trading company. But also, of course, there comes the 100% more on bonus from the trade company provinces itself on top of that, which makes that modifier essentially 8 instead of 4. And you can see where this ends up. I have only those 4 provinces in the trade company with investments. I have already 10% trade share of the English Channel and even 2% in the North Sea, where the Teutonic Order only has 1% in total. So you can imagine that the trade income is insanely way higher, and even way higher than times 6, because times 6 is only the trade power. Of course, trade efficiency and so on comes on top of that. So you get insanely more trade income from a trading company or provinces. And also, as I already said, trade centers are of course 2 times more efficient, which means that even if the Teutonic Order had a center of trade in some province, this center of trade would be worth 10, even though it is just on 1, because of the 100% trade company bonus on local trade power. Now, there is obviously a big problem with trade companies, and that is the local autonomy. As you can see, the local autonomy in this case is not 90%, because it's 85%. Because of the investment that I did, Governor's General Mansion, which is, in my opinion, in general, the best of those special buildings. Of course, if you are in India and have only provinces with 4.5 valuable spices, then the trade value modifier can be extremely strong. Or if you are on the Cape of Good Hope, where you have only 1 province, but you're steering all the trade through it, then the trade steering one would be the best. But in general, for normal trade company regions, I think this one is the best because of the minimum autonomy, but also of the manpower, but we're getting to that in a second. So this means basically that the autonomy is not 90% base, it is basically it's 85% base, right? So let's just assume that. Now, this autonomy is obviously extremely high, and therefore you're getting extremely nasty modifiers on income, which already is already clear that it is still higher on trading companies. But also you get extremely bad modifiers on force limit, manpower, and sailors. And yeah, we are getting to the force limit in a second, later in the video, but the manpower and the sailors is obviously a big problem. And therefore, if you calculate the entire manpower of the entire state over here, this is in total 426 manpower on this state. Whereas the Teutonic Order in all of this Northern England state already has 992 and therefore almost 1,000 manpower. Which means that is more than double the manpower that it has. But there is one more thing that you have to keep in mind, which is that investment over here, and that gives of course 2,000 base manpower increase, which you can then of course calculate down to the provinces to make it a province modifier. And if we do the same thing as for the investment costs, so assume that you have 20 provinces in the entire trade company node, then this would mean that you have an additional 100 manpower per province, and therefore an additional 400 manpower on this entire state, which makes it in total not 426 but 826 manpower. And now the difference between 826 and 992 is not that much anymore. It's just 20% more manpower that the full state gives above the full trading company. Now there is one more thing that also is combined with the trading power that you get pretty strong, which is of course the trade value modifier. It is not that big, but there is a difference because this investment over here gives you local goods produced plus 0.3. So yeah, let's just assume the calculation is not that important because it's not that big of a difference, but let's just assume that you get another 1.5 monthly ducats of trade value. So instead of 17.3, if you have 20 provinces in charter and so on, then it would be like 18.8 instead of 17.3. On top of that, there are two other modifiers that are a little bit off of the province income, which is of course that you get a merchant if you have enough trade power of the trading company provinces. I would just have 1 month pass to update that, but you get obviously a trading. You get obviously a merchant if you have 50%. You know, I have right now 10%, so it is not that difficult to get a merchant off of the trading companies. And you get a trading company bonus on the goods produced for other nations. You can see that over here, my trading company that I have in the Yorkshire state gives that province of the England AI 3.1% trading company bonus on the goods produced. And this would obviously also affect my own provinces, but in this video I'm not talking about getting the maximum money, but getting the maximum in general out of the provinces, where it is way more efficient to just add everything to a trading company for those bonuses of the trading company effects for the trading company investments than to just state the trading centers and leave the others free to get the goods produced modifier. On the other hand, states provide another bonus that the trade company doesn't have, which is reform progress growth. And of course this has to do with the autonomy. And as you can see, with just this one state, I have already a average autonomy of 30%, which means that I get way less governing reform progress growth. But if you calculate that real quick, that means that if you would have 70% average autonomy, right? That's really, really high, of course, right? Then you still get 0.49, so almost 0.5 reform progress growth per month, which is not that low of an amount, right? Of course, if you have 0%, which is pretty unrealistic, but let's just say you have 0% average autonomy, then you would get 0.83 per month. And the difference is not that big, of course, right? You have 70% more autonomy and you get 70% less reform progress growth. But still, the base of 0.5 per month, it is not really that bad, of course, right? But trust me, wait until the end. It is not as bad as the positive things are good. After all, it means if you trade company every province versus use full state every province, you get, for the trading companies, 33% more income, more than 600% more, so more than 6 times more trade power, and therefore also trade income, a little bit more trade value as well, and you get only 20% less manpower than in the States. On top of that, trading companies can give you a merchant, whereas states give you more governing reform progress. But you have to keep in mind all of that, if you calculate all of that together, you have to also calculate the governing capacity costs, which obviously is halved in trade company states. And therefore this means that you can do 2 times the trading company setup with 1 state setup at the same governing capacity cost. And this means if you, let's say, of course, you have a little bit less manpower, you have a little bit less reform progress growth. So let's just say you don't get 2 times more exactly of the things that I've just told you with the with the trading company things, but it results in a minimum of 60% more of everything that you get from trading companies in comparison to states. And this is obviously calculating the fact that you can do double the amount of trading company provinces than you can state provinces. And you not only get 60% more of everything like manpower, sailors and so on, you also get easily more than 10 times or even higher amount of money from those trading companies, calculating the trade power, the trade steering, the trade value modifiers that the trade company provinces give compared to the states. And therefore this also means that you get 10 times earlier to the point of becoming economic hegemony, which is, in my opinion, in single player the best thing in the game. Of course, the military one is good for conquering a lot and so on, but if you have infinite money, then you can conquer everything a lot faster as well. This is why if you get 10 times faster to the economic hegemony, this gives you another 20% minimum autonomy in territories and also in trading company provinces, of course, and therefore blowing everything away that states could have done better before, because with 65% average autonomy in your trading companies, you even get simply straight up more manpower, more sailors, way more money than the states provinces give you. Yeah, and if we're talking about that minimum autonomy, then we obviously also have to talk about minimum autonomy in territories modifiers that you can get. And one of those you've already seen, which is the Governor's General Mansion investment, which gives in the entire charter, it doesn't even matter if the provinces are in the trade company or if they are not, you get minus 5% minimum autonomy. And yeah, this means of course that it gives you 85%, as you can see with this over there. But that's not all. You get another 5% from the tier 3 government reform for monarchies, which is minus 5% again. and also extremely easy to get. In my opinion, straight up the best reform on that level, except you go for like colonial stuff. There is also the same thing for republics on tier 12, which obviously is way further down the line, I have to admit that, but obviously keep in mind that you get 100% more Republican reform progress growth if you have Republican tradition up, so that's also not that bad, but this gives you also minus 10% instead of minus 5%. Then obviously if you finish expansion ideas, there is another minus 10% waiting at the end of that. On top of that, which I already showed you, is the economic hegemony, which gives you minus 20% if it's on 100% full for every territories, which is an insanely good modifier. There's obviously the States House manufactory, but there is one little downside to that, as if you build them in trading company regions, let's just switch back to the Livonian order. If you build those in trading company regions, then those modifiers only affect one province, because obviously this is not a full state, right? It is basically a territory. You can still build this in the most important provinces, such as York, for example, which also gives you minimal autonomy in that one province, but it is not statewide, so it's not that strong. And after all, there is also another 10% reduction if you complete the USA national ideas, which is a little bit rare, but anyways, if you just combine half of those modifiers that I've just told you already, you will have no problems comparing trade company states in a one-to-one comparison to full states, and I can guarantee you, if you get below 70% and to like 65% minimum autonomy in those territories, trading company provinces are straight up better in any case than full states, except for one thing only, which is reform progress growth. But you have to keep in mind that you can obviously not full state all of your provinces because of governing capacity, whereas you can do the trading company setup in double the provinces than you can full state. And that is actually the exactly next thing that I want to talk about, which is governing capacity. Now you see, governing capacity is in most cases the biggest problem if you play wide. And also if you play tall, it becomes a problem really fast, because if you own all of Italy, let's say, and play tall and dev all of that to 2030 development, even with courthouses and even with town halls, with which you obviously unlock pretty late in the game, you still have problems with governing capacity because of those provinces being full stated. Now, you already saw the town hall investment over here a second ago, but the town hall, if you build it in a province, the province governing cost is reduced by 50%. And as I said in the beginning of the video, trade company governing cost is minus 75% because of it's a territory, and then plus 25% because it's in a trading company. That means that it has 50% of your development, so 50% governing capacity cost. And if you build this town hall in those trading company provinces, then you have minus 100% trade governing cost reduction. And this means that you literally pay zero governing capacity cost for those provinces. Of course, it is not really 0.00, but it is 0 point something, because the minimum, hard cap minimum of governing capacity cost is 1% of the province development. So if I would have a town hall in York province over here, then it would be 1% of that 8, so 0.08 governing capacity would this province be? So instead of 8, it is actually 0.08. And if you think about that, how crazy that is, this means that if you have 30,000 development, which is basically like own the entire world, right? If you own the entire world, that's basically 30,000 development. And you build a town hall in every province, and you add every province to a trading company, then those 30,000 development would cost you 300 governing capacity. And just to keep that in mind, the base governing capacity is already 200, and if you are a kingdom, the base is 400. So you could govern 30,000 development, you have everything in a trading company, and you would still be 100 governing capacity below your governing cap as a kingdom title, without any technologies taken. But this gets even better if you are Republic. By the way, Republic is actually a really strong government type. I think most of the people know that already. If you are Republic, you can actually go super crazy, because there is obviously tier 1 plutocracy, for example, which gives you cheaper trade company governing cost. And it doesn't say that on the interface right here, but cheaper means 25% in this case. And 25% less means that every trading company that you create, for example, as Genoa, for example, in Kaffa over here, it has 10 development, but the trade company costs for Kaffa is only 2.5, so only 25%. And this means that you can already get 0 governing costs with building courthouses, which obviously costs only 100 ducats, costs no building slot, and they are unlocked on Tech 8 already. Which means that if you build those provinces, those courthouses in every province while being a plutocracy, gives you 0 governing cost on every trade company provinces right away as well, without waiting on the Tech 22 for town halls. But it gets even better than that, because you say, yeah, but I don't want to be a plutocracy, I like absolutism, I like to be noble elite if I am a republic, you know? You could obviously say that, that's like reasonable. But then you can just take the tier 7, and keep in mind that reform progress is also boosted on republics. You can take tier 7 Union of States over here, which is, by the way, anyways, the best of those reforms in my opinion, which gives you the same modifier of cheaper trade company governing costs. On top of that, you can also place trade posts and get global trade power more, which means that you are basically a plutocracy. But this means that also you can be any republic on tier 1, it doesn't matter. You can get the same modifier of 0 governing costs just with a courthouse and using the trading company. And if you are not a republic, then you can obviously wait for the town halls until you get that crazy modifier, but also keep in mind that if you build courthouses, then those modifiers are already on the same level as normal territories that you have to pay anyways, right? So if you keep in mind that this thing of town halls or republic and courthouses to get this to 0% actually means that trading company provinces are literally cheaper to govern than territories. Which is, in my opinion, just totally crazy. And just to show you how that looks like if you play that out really well in a actual game, I've just loaded a multiplayer game in which I played as Norway and formed the North Sea Empire, Scandinavia before that, as you can see. There was another player on Portugal, as you might imagine, with Portugal over there. So really nice Portugal as well. But in this game, I actually tested that really well. And you can see that I have 40% autonomy modifiers on territories with trade companies, which is of course through several modifiers that I've stacked. It is 5% because of the investment, as I already said. It is 10% because I took expansion ideas, as you can see. It is 20% because I'm the economic hegemony. And it is another 10% because of the tier 12 government reform of republics, of course. And as we are on republics, you can see that I've already chosen to be a plutocracy just for trade leagues, basically. Now we keep being at Stockholm over here, at the province that has 17 development, right? Keep in mind, as I said, with the plutocracy I have cheaper straight company governing costs, or with the tier 7 government reform Union of States. So I have right now 25% less on this province. I have 25% more on the trading company and minus 75% for being a territory. So in total it's right now minus 75% base. But also I obviously created a town hall, which I didn't even need. You know, like a courthouse would be enough, but as you can see, I was swimming in money, so I just built it. But let's just imagine I had a town hall over here. And now let's see the governing capacity costs of this province over here. You see, this entire state costs me 0.09 governing capacity. And the province of Stockholm actually overflowed because I built a town hall in it, which means that it gives me literally, and I mean literally, 0.00 governing capacity. Obviously it might be 0.0017 or something, you know, but it is literally not displayed anymore in the game. And therefore, even though I have trading companied, all of those white provinces that you can see are trading companies, full trading companies, you notice that my governing capacity only fills 830 out of 1700, almost 1800. That is of course mostly because of my full states in my capital area in North America, which is another little trick, because of course you can't do trading companies in the New World, so why don't just move your capital to the New World? Then you have your subcontinent in the New World, as you can see in your North America, where you cannot do trading companies anyways, and just trade company all of Europe and get all of those extremely nice modifiers for the manpower, sailors and so on from the trade company investment costs, of course. And now there are actually two more things I want to quickly talk about, but really quickly because they don't matter that much. One is buildings, which of course is a important thing. As you can see, training fields, for example, if you unlock them, they give 100% more manpower. But those 100% is modified with the local autonomy, which means at 40% autonomy, for example, over here, this wouldn't be 100%, it would be actually only 60% more manpower, right? Because the modifier is obviously taken 40% off of that modifier afterwards. And as it is percentual, this obviously affects the base manpower more than you would have it in full states, that's for sure. But keep in mind that there is a trade company investment that gives you plus 100% local manpower modifier. And that means that even if you build the strongest building plus 100%, which by the way is unlocked at a pretty late technology, of course, you would still get 100% the same modifier on the trade company province through this investment, which you can't get in states. And you can of course build the same building also in trade company provinces, which means that essentially on trade company provinces you get 100, like 50-60% on the manpower if you build the training field and this investment, whereas a full state could only get 100% more more manpower. Which means that also on that front, trading companies are simply better, even though they obviously make buildings less effective, except for, of course, the manufactories that affect trade income, or for example, because they just go straight into trade value, and being a trade company doesn't matter there. And the second thing is the force limit. The force limit is actually a thing that trade companies are just straight up worse than full states, of course. Because, yeah, the force limit, as you can see, even though I'm such a strong nation, I have only 792 force limit, which would obviously change if I stated those provinces. But keep in mind that force limit is, at least in single player, not really that valuable as manpower is. So the question would be, would you exchange more manpower for less force limit? And also you have to keep in mind that every trading company that you create gets 5% less minimum autonomy than states could ever get. Which means that in total, you, if you want to have a same force limit, you would need to play around with vassals and vassal force limit and so on. But there is one little thing that you might have missed about that, is that the only downside of going over the force limit is actually money. And if there is one thing only, that trading company provinces make better than states in any circumstance, like 6 times, 7 times, 10 times better, then it is money. And money is the thing that you get the most out of trading company every province. To come back to the beginning of the video, if you want to go for the maximum income possible, then it is more money effective to only trade company the trade centers to get the goods produced modifier in those provinces from trading companies that you can see down there, of course, which is an insane modifier, no doubt about that. But the question is, do you need money if you have 2.6 thousand ducats of balance? No, I think you need manpower, you need sailors, you need stability, and after all, you also just need trade power to make more money. So I guess it actually was a pretty long video again, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you maybe rethink your kind of gameplay in the future and maybe play around more with trading companies. And I'm going to see you, as always, in the next video.